Ready? Okay. Alrighty, calling into order and roll call. It appears that we have a full panel tonight. All of the board members are here. Adoption of the agenda. Are there changes, additions, deletions?
Yes, Madam President, I want to move new business, the Marina off-leash dog map, to a later date and time in May.
Okay, we'll pull that one off. Anything else? Hearing nothing, let's approve the agenda as amended. Announcements. In order for, you have expressed recently how nice it is to have short board meetings. And therefore, I elected to break this one up into a couple of sessions, pulling out all of the budget discussion for a week from tonight. And we will do all the rest of our business tonight. Okay? There will be a separate packet, separate posting, and the next meeting will be Thursday, May the 2nd, 7 o'clock.
Still in here.
There, yes, right. Okay, property owner comments.
How about announcements?
I'm sorry?
I have an announcement.
Oh, I'm sorry, more announcements, right?
On Saturday, there is a jazz concert at 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock. So if you like jazz, please come down here at the dance barn. Thank you.
Eric?
Again, this year, beginning in April, as we did last year, we're deploying the traffic counting equipment to try and build a database of areas with speeding problems or areas of high congestion during certain times where maybe some type of mitigation can be taken. And so if you see the rubber hoses out and about, that's what they're all about.
Also, there's going to be a fishing derby coming up on Saturday. Larry, do you have some more information on that?
No, just wanted to
Does
remind
anybody
somebody.
know, what time? And it's going to be at,
Registration's at 8:30, and it goes from 9 to 12.
okay. Okay? Any else? Nothing? Okay. Okay, now moving on to property owner comments.
Good afternoon, Waterman, 15 Grandview Lane. This is a repeat. Director Holmstrom, you were not here several weeks ago. I asked a question. I went back and confirmed some information. I haven't received an answer yet. You were attributed at informing the community that the reserve study was being inflated because it was listing bare land in it. We have checked it. It is not listing bare land. There's 3 costs in there for minor costs for studies. That's it. I have, even tonight, and reaffirmed to all of my committee members, subcommittee members actually, no incorrect information from our committee should ever go out. I would think that this would be the truth from the board also. So if you had said, or it was attributed to you as saying that bare land was in the reserve study to inflate it, to drive the cost up, that is not a correct statement, and it needs to be corrected. Thank you.
Any other comments? Board comments? Hearing nothing, let's move on to the general manager's report. There is, on your desk is a handout which will be attached to the minutes when they are posted.
Good evening, everyone. Just a few things. We had our second annual contractors meeting on the 5th of April at Sheraton's Four Points. This is a meeting where we get all the contractors who do work in Sun Valley, as well as the Lake Sewer and Water District and Whatcom County, to try to find a better way to fit the needs of the community as well as the needs of the builders, to try to make it a better and smoother process. So this is the second time. There was about 15 contractors, about the same amount that was there last year. So this is it's a good thing for everybody involved. As it was mentioned, yes, there is a fishing derby tomorrow or Saturday. Azam is going to take that from Sunmark. We will continue to work with her. I will be there as well as Lisa from from management to assist any way we can. But going forward, we're going to try to work with her to make a partnership for that for the community. The vegetation control will be running May through September this year. There is some stuff later down the line where we will be doing the clean and green. The schedule is in the back part of this package, so if you miss Firewise, there will be a list that will be going out to the community where you can take it to Area Z and do clean and green. So, also the managers have, we sat down with the first round of the budgets. Those were the assumptions and everything that we were bringing to the board for tonight, but now that will be moved to next week to start the process for 2020. We have 2 new construction packages, and we have 2 more that are scheduled to come in over the next month. So building will be starting here soon for us. We have 193 members in Town Square. There was a little bit of a glitch when people first tried to sign up, and it was on their end, so we have that now fixed.
By their end, not the people trying to sign up?
No, from the company's end, there was a little glitch in getting everything shipped out, so.
Okay, so the Town Square end.
Yeah, Town Square, but that is now fixed, and if you have not received anything, please send an email or contact AR, and we will get you on that list and get everything going for that. Right now, again, Jennifer and I and the managers are working with the board, or with the managers and with you guys, the board, to start the process for the budgets. Through April, we were at 94.4% in collections. Pretty good trend. If you look over the last year, you run anywhere between 95, 96, sometimes up even 99%, which is it's a very good number for a homeowners association. With payroll, the new Washington minimum wage is going to $13.50 January 1st. What we are working on now is to get a third-party outside agency to help us look at our wages so we don't get a wage compression. Because if you have somebody who's been here for a couple of years, they're at say $13.75, new person coming in at $13.50. So we're working with them to get us a demographic as well as appropriate pay scales and pay bands for our area so that we don't compress some of the other workers. We're also going to meet with Comcast to review all of our packages. We have quite a few packages out there, and we're going to work on trying to condense those and in an effort to save some money across the board for the association. Month of March, we had 6,142 hits on the website. Of those, 4,761 of those were the first-time users, on an average of 1.99 pages per view. So they're going in, seeing what they need to see, and going right back out. So there's not a lot of extra hits into the website. The Adult Center, they have finished the irrigation project down there so that the grass will be growing and everything will be hopefully open and ready to go by Memorial Day weekend, both pools, the adult pool and the main pool. There are some punch list items that do need to be addressed yet on the big pool. Nothing major, some tile work and some painting, but that will be done and ready to go before we open in May. Maddie and her team have been pulling out the sports equipment, getting that ready to go so that we can, people can use it on a daily basis. Right now we have 4 lifeguards. We're looking for 10. That's the number that we're looking to have this year. So if anybody knows anybody who wants to be a lifeguard, send them our way. Golf, year-to-date revenue is 11% higher than last year. We're at $281,850 as opposed to $250,985. So they've had a pretty good start so far to the first few months. Last week was the opening day tournament for the golf club. And this Sunday starts the outing season with Bellingham High School Sports fundraiser. I'm not sure if they have any spots left in that, but it's always a good thing to help the local schools out. Jacob has been doing stuff on the golf course. He's got some tree stumps that he's got ground out, and then he's replaced the trees that they have removed. He got 3 trees put back in. So try to keep them, 1 for 1 or close to 1 to 1. There were 167 requests for Firewise, and 47 people requested wood chips. Unfortunately, we ran out of wood chips for everybody, so Bruce will be trying to figure something out to get some more wood chips. As I said, the culvert and vegetation will begin May 6th, and will go through September. The crews will be doing 4 10-hour days to get that done. Clean and Green, as I said, as you see, there is a calendar here that this will go out to the community so that everybody can see that, and they can drop their stuff off at the maintenance yard on those days. So it's a good thing. I think everybody should try to do as much of that as they can, get some of the stuff off the ground. Norm and I know Mike are trying to work on some stuff for the signs for in the community. Like the county, we're gonna have to probably juggle around a little bit some of the spots because the county won't let us use their right-of-ways, but we might have to move signs a little bit. So that's some of the stuff that they're working on.
The signs you mean for the emergency preparedness, the
Yeah, the
evacuation stuff?
1610.
No,
Yes.
not evacuation, 1610.
1610
Yeah, for the radio.
for the radio. And later in the night tonight, we will be discussing July 4th fireworks. Any questions?
Okay. So Clean Green starts a week from Saturday. Okay, are there questions for Larry?
Yes, ma'am. One is kind of a comment. This is not numbered, but the dues collections, the percentage seems very commendable the last 3 months. That's a hugely high average, those 3 months. The next one is more of a suggestion. As part of the long-range planning, an idea came up, should long-range planning take a look at workplace safety, in particular workplace violence? And my response was, no, that's really a day-to-day, it's not a long-range planning thing. However, noting that HUB is going to come in, are they just talking about safety, or will they talk also about workplace violence and that kind of thing? Okay.
I can answer that. I'm gonna see if I can get a microphone. Our risk assessment, our senior risk assessment manager is from HUB. His name is Jim Fleece, and he's been out here a number of times when we started our safety committee to guide us and to walk the entire property and point out. His favorite comment was, in a perfect world, it would look like this. But he had nothing but good things to say, but there are a lot of areas for improvement. And he will be out on May 1st. He'll be out here again to do another assessment of what the changes that we've made per his instructions look like. And then also, he does do an active shooter training. And that's something that we've actually gone through before. Norm headed that up a number of years ago, but it seems prudent to revisit. And so it is something that was discussed with Jim, and we won't have that training when he comes out this time, but we'll discuss what that looks like and who's involved and the parameters. Okay.
Thank you.
Eric?
Thanks. I wanted to take note of the positive. Again, the dues collection page that Larry was mentioning. I'm looking at, over the past year, the number of payment plans that have been requested. They started out in November of 17 as the first chart that I'm turning to, had 45 payment plans, and that number has decreased significantly. In fact, it's trended significantly the entire last year of 2018 to where now it's down to 20 so it's more than halved in the positive. And so I think that's commendable to both the way that we're working with people to help them with any issues that they have, and commendable to the community for being good citizens.
Other questions? Okay. Seeing nothing. Moving on to the treasurer's report, and voting is necessary. Carol?
Yes, the following items were all discussed, checking, yes, all discussed at the Finance Committee meeting last week and were voted on, and I will give you the heads up as they are presented as to what the Finance's vote was on each one. So, snow report.
We are requesting $94,600 from UDR to cover all the snow expenses from this winter's storms. It was, we had budgeted $15,000 and the total cost was $109,600, so.
I move that the board approve the request for snow removal reimbursement from the UDR account. It was an unusual amount.
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Discussion. I think it is, okay, Eric?
My first question, I don't know if I heard it, but is UDR healthy right now?
After this amount is removed from UDR, correct me if I'm wrong, Jennifer, but we will still have over $200,000 in the UDR account.
Okay, thank you.
And by the way, just to intervene, this was approved or recommended unanimously by the Finance Committee.
Just one question on the spreadsheet that I see, and I know, or I anticipate a fantastic answer from staff. In the years preceding 2019, I see the payroll regular has nothing, but in 2019 we have 31,000 payroll regular. Would that 31,000 have been something attributed to other things that the regular staff was doing during that time, or is that is this extra payroll?
So all the payroll expenses that are shown here, regardless of year, were billed to a snow event. Historically, the snow events have been pretty short, 3 or 4 days, and so we didn't go to the level of detail to break out what was regular budgeted payroll versus what was overtime. But due to the extreme length of this snow event, it was requested to separate out those costs. And if you recall, when I spoke earlier this year, I don't remember if it was January or February, we stated that we were going to end up being over in our budget this year due to raises that were given later in the year to avoid wage compression and retain our employees. And so requesting the regular payroll funds from UDR will in fact put us back on budget for the year. So it's kind of 2 birds with 1 stone.
And so would this make it easier to account for snow events in the future?
Yes, I mean, in the future, our new payroll system allows us to see this level of detail much easier than our old payroll system and its reporting features without a bunch of time-consuming kind of calculations and reporting. So we'll be able to track what was regular and overtime going forward for snow events and pretty easily.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think if you just look at the chart, it's not missing the information, it's just that it is separated out, and so if you were to put that at the top line where the other three are, it would be the 45,000
That's
total.
correct.
It's just that this time we broke it out so that we have more detail for future, hopefully not soon, snow events, as the one we have experienced this year.
Correct.
Call the question?
With no objection, all those in favor? And the vote is unanimous. The motion passes. Golf range picker.
Yes, the range picker, is that something you're going to do, Joe?
I can do it.
Okay.
I got it.
And by the way, this was approved unanimously also by the finance committee.
So when, in 2014, Pleasant Valley entered into a lease to do 40 golf carts. At that point in time, they loaned the club a range picker. That now is expired, will in May. So what we are looking to do is keep the existing one, and the price on that is $5,750.50. A new vehicle is over $13,000. So we will have this vehicle. It's the one that we have in-house right now. It won't go back. It will be ours.
So I would like to move that the board approve and that a SURF allocation not to exceed $5,500 or $750.50 to purchase the 2014 Carryall 300 range picking vehicle that we are currently using.
Second.
I also would like to make a comment. Would you speak, or ask, I guess, Joe, to make a comment? Would you speak a little bit to the life of this, the expected life of this particular vehicle?
These vehicles, you can generally run 8 to 10 years, depending on how well you take care of them. A lot of it is a maintenance. It is a gas engine, so at worst case scenario, if the engine does go, you could always set a new one back into it. So you get about 8 to 10 years out of these vehicles. I've seen some range carts go longer than that. You know, we are in an environment where you're not picking every day. Down south, they go a lot quicker, but in northern climates and climates like this, you get about 8 to 10 years. And we've had it now for 5, so you probably have another 3 to 5 years of extended life.
Sarah?
I have two questions. One is, how was the $5,750 just, we reached out to the company we were leasing it from and asked them, what would you charge us to buy it? And this is the price they came back with?
That is the price that they have said the vehicle is worth to come back for us to have.
Okay. And then my other question is, I'm assuming this wasn't budgeted in SURF originally, so where are we pulling this from in SURF? Are we looking good in SURF? Are there other things that were coming in under that we're pulling this from, or how was that decision kind of made at finance?
This is actually new capital. It's not something that we own. It's not even something that we're leasing. It was just a loaner as a bonus to the lease. So since it's new capital, it wouldn't have ever shown up on the reserve study. We do have a 10% contingency on our SURF capital this year, and several of the requests that are coming to you this evening aren't using that 10% contingency. It's not needed. And so just in the request tonight, there's enough funding to make this purchase this year of new capital.
Do you know what that contingency amount is that would go on, the 10%?
It was 10% of the 769,000 or so that's approved for SURF funding this year. So.
Other questions?
Call the question.
Okay. Without objection, all those in favor? And it is unanimous, it passes. Okay, the custodial van.
Jacob?
Okay, this will be Jacob. And also, as long as we're waiting for Jacob to set up, this particular one was also voted on unanimously to send to the board. by the Finance Committee.
Good evening, directors. For 2019, we have several vehicles on the state RRF budget plan, and one of the vehicles is a replacement for our custodial van that's used to service all our custodial needs and facilities. We felt in planning this purchase that it was most prudent, due to the number of miles this puts on a year, to go with the used van. And that is outlined in the request. That's why it's not part of the other vehicle request that comes later. We repurposed a vehicle that was purchased long ago and used by different departments throughout its life. Ultimately, kind of the end of its life, working in janitorial, it's time to upgrade to kind of the correct vehicle for this type of activity, so that we can be efficient and not have to, be able to carry the supplies we need without having to go back to Area Z or to a storage location to restock. So funding request is for a used vehicle in good condition, put on about 3,000 miles a year conducting this activity, so no problem purchasing something used and going from there.
Is your motion?
Did you make a motion?
Oh, I thought I did, sorry. I move that we approve the purchase of the van from the SERF account for the amount requested of $22,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions? Sarah?
I guess I'm really confused. So it says that this van currently has over 80,000 miles, but so do all of these vans that we're looking at quotes for. So we're spending $22,000 to get a vehicle with the same amount of mileage as what we already have?
There's one, in the quotes, I've just selected a few. One had 81, one had 66, one had, pretty small print. There's a difference in the vehicle. The vehicle we currently use is a Caravan, which is kind of a, run-around family type of vehicle. It's not a commercial vehicle. We'll be switching to a what's called a panel van, like a contractor would use. So generally the lifespan is closer to 200,000 miles with those type of vehicles versus a minivan, front-wheel drive minivan at much shorter life period. And this vehicle, honestly, in its early years, was not maintained very well. So, yeah, the miles might be similar, but the lifespan's a lot longer on the type of vehicle we'll go to. It's basically a truck chassis versus a car chassis on the van. So, but that is correct. These are example used vans. What we purchase may, this is a not to exceed request. What we purchase may have less. It just depends on what we can find at the time when we decide to pull the trigger. So we'll try and get as low miles as we can in the best condition we can, obviously.
Call the question.
Any further questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? 2, 4, 6. I believe it's 7 in favor. Any opposed? 1 opposed. And the motion passes. The greens mower.
There's also a request I put forward from the prioritized 2019 reserve study budget. We use the greens triplex to mow the golf greens. Which is our most important area, the golf course. So that's why it was prioritized. The unit we're replacing is from 1999. Total of almost 5,000 hours on it, so that's definitely the lifespan of that type of equipment. It's on a second engine and served us well. We received bids from 3 manufacturers, and the bid I've presented is a demo, so it's a piece of equipment with full warranty, but a few hours to keep the price down, and therefore that's also the low bid. This machine also matches our other 2 fleet of triplex type mowers that we use on the golf course for different areas, tees, approaches and whatnot. So easy to for operators to learn on. The parts are all the same, and it simplifies our maintenance and operation. And let's see, reserve numbers or fixed asset numbers are listed there.
Is your motion?
Yes, I move that the board approve a SURF allocation not to exceed $39,778 to purchase a new greens triplex.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Questions?
This was also unanimously approved, and I have to commend the staff. They've been working really hard to try to come up with a plan to standardize as much of the equipment as possible so that it makes it more efficient to keep parts and repair things and things more interchangeable. We'll talk more about that as we get to the fleet, but the triplex is a step in the right direction as well.
Questions? Comments?
Call the question?
I
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
See your
Question,
hand.
sorry, on my calculator, I'm assuming we're going with the Turf Star Western quote, the cheapest one? And then
Yes.
plus the 3%, okay.
Yes, and I would also state that's the industry leader currently right now, so, yeah. But that is the low bid also, due to the demo, the demo unit that we're looking at, yeah.
Call the question.
Okay, seeing no further questions. All those in favor? It is unanimous. The vehicles.
So there are 3 fleet vehicles that are on the 2019 CRRF reserve study budget for this year. Let me get down to this page here. Generally, for vehicles that are used extensively, buying new offers the best deal for Sudden Valley. But these 3 were packaged together from different departments so that we can get the best price from our suppliers, from the dealerships in the area. So 3 vehicles, one for security, one to support park staff, and one to support maintenance staff are bundled in this request. Let's see, there's a breakdown of the models that were bid. The asset numbers for the current assets are listed there. The first one, the security vehicle, we're replacing a 2009 Honda CR-V. For many years, we've run CR-Vs. We had a resident of the valley that was able to get us great deals on Honda vehicles and served us well for a long period of time. He is retired, and the pricing has retired with him, I guess you could say. So we've had to, given the budget that was developed, it's hard to get a CR-V under that level. On top of that, security's functions throughout the year would be better suited by a compact truck, in talking with GM and Norm and security officers. So I, after looking at prices for a CR-V and similar, we also looked into small trucks, four-wheel drive, 4-door automatic trucks with a canopy, have a canopy on the back. Current vehicle has 142,000 miles, so definitely ready to replace that. Second vehicle is a replacement for the Parks truck listed there. We are, let's see. And the third vehicle is a replacement for a GMC dump truck for maintenance. One little bit of a change there to support veg control and some of our other activities in maintenance where multiple staff go to the same location. To keep the roads a little bit more clear and take up less room for flagging, we're going to spec a 4-door truck so that we can transport more than 2 staff at a time to those locations. And that also would be a vehicle that can support a plow and sander if we choose to ask for that. After we've picked a vehicle, we can, there is some budget to outfit that for snow removal as well, which would increase us to 6 plow and sander setups. So we put these bids out to, the specs out to dealerships, and there's 3 different dealerships that returned, these are the most cost-effective quotes: Blade Chevy, Dwayne Lane Ford, and Reardon Dodge. And those are all broken down. Low total goes to Blade Chevy. That also matches what we've been purchasing for the last since 2016, we've purchased Chevy trucks. We've received the best deal. The quality is very high. We achieve great support with that supplier. So I'm recommending the Blade Chevy quote. It comes in under the CRRF budgeted amount for this year, which allows us a little more breathing room for other projects, I'm sure. And it also, I think maybe most importantly, it matches the fleet of trucks we've been operating, so the driver training is much simpler. Parts, the filters, tires, even the snow plows, the brackets, the components are all, we can stock fewer parts and have a higher uptime on our maintenance activities.
Is there a motion?
Just waiting to see if he was done.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Absolutely. I move that we approve a CERF allocation of $133,188 to purchase these 3 fleet vehicles.
Second.
Discussion? Eric?
In some other motions about when we're replacing equipment, there's an item that talks about disposal of the equipment being replaced. Has any of that been considered? Would we be selling this old equipment and the money would go back into SURF, or is that even a necessary part of this motion? I know it was a part of the previous motion.
I'm asking.
I would say if there's anything we could sell, we will definitely sell, and the money will go back into SURF. I've done that in the past at other facilities where once you transition something out, you sell it and get what you can get out of it and just turn it back over.
There was also discussion at the Finance Committee about the vehicle for security and whether or not some of the the fittings for that particular vehicle will be able to be transferred to the Chevy truck.
Yeah, I can speak to the upfitting costs. Working with Norm, we are in this capital request, we're going to remove the equipment in the 2009 Honda security vehicle and install it into the truck.
Mm-hmm. And that's a possibility. It's not that
Oh, it's
different.
definitely,
Okay.
all that equipment is currently working, and we would remove it to sell it anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And there's quite a lot of value to those components, with just a few parts that we have to upgrade to make it through another lifespan. But that's the goal, we'll do that. And then I usually negotiate on trade-in and balance that with what we can get doing private party selling, and yeah, all that goes back into CRRF generally. In accordance with accounting practices, of course.
Of course.
But we would have no problem liquidating these, on the private party or trading them in. The plan is not to keep them, if that's part of the question.
Madam President, Sarah?
I have 3 questions. What's going on with the dump truck? It only has 58,600 miles. I see it 97, so it's old, but it's very low miles. So is it not been maintained, or why are we having to get rid of something with such low mileage?
Yes, yeah, that's a great question. So the dump truck in question does have low miles. It was used pretty heavily in snow removal. I would say they're hard miles. It's on its second transmission and currently has a failing head gasket. A lot of rust from snow removal activities. I would say, I wasn't here when it was purchased. I imagine, you know, being stored outside and then with maybe some poor maintenance, it hasn't achieved what I would consider is a normal lifespan, which would be about 100,000-ish miles on a truck that does snow removal. So, yeah, I think it's a combination of things on that. The, you know, the security vehicle and the F-250 are up over 100,000 miles, and that's usually what we strive for.
Okay, then another thing is all three of these quotes for all three of the vehicles are different types of vehicles. And I think it just makes it a really unfair comparison, comparing three totally different vehicles from different vendors. You're not really comparing apples to apples. And you're I guess I'm wondering why we have three different vehicles from each location?
So what we've done is take three different vehicles from each manufacturer, Ford, Chevy, and Dodge, basically what fits the parameters of what we've requested. So you've got a 1-ton, you know, maintenance truck from Chevy, you've got a 1-ton maintenance truck from Ford, same with Dodge. On the trucks, the Dodge they don't offer a compact pickup, so they bid a half-ton pickup. But other than that, they're very similar. They just vary by manufacturer. I did get, not including this, I did get pricing from another Ford dealership, or another Chevy dealership in Bellingham, and it was higher, so I didn't include that in the packet. But we do look into that. But they are equivalent type ranges of vehicles just across different lines. Part of the reason Chevy is always very competitive, we have a fleet account with Chevy due to the number of Chevy vehicles we have. Once we get over a certain level, it allows us to get much better pricing, and generally the other manufacturers can't get close. So that's reflected there.
Okay, last question is why do we have a contingency on purchase of equipment, or this is vehicles? I mean, this isn't a project where there might be change orders or something. This is a flat, you get a quote, that's how much you pay. I mean, you don't, once you get a quote from a car dealership, that's what you pay. There's no contingency in there. So what is that?
That's a good question. So on each of the manufacturers, there's an upfit cost, and those are components such as radios, emergency beacons, fire extinguishers, the canopy for the security vehicle, toolboxes, things of that nature, so that all the capital costs of the vehicle are accounted for when we purchase it. And we get prices on those when the bids are made up. Some of that cost could go up in a month. Until you purchase the components, in some of these cases our upfit cost for three vehicles, you know, it's almost $8,000. So if you get a small increase there, you can run into need for that contingency pretty quickly. And it's generally a practice to include contingency so that we don't have to come back if we have a small overage and take up your time. I think that's wise. Generally I don't run into need for the contingency, but I think it's wise planning just in case something comes up.
That's it, Ms. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Whitney and
I just had a quick question. It looks like we're going to be joining the building industry for $500, and I'm just curious if that, by us joining that, if that will allow us the opportunity to get discounts from other vendors in the future.
Yeah, another reason Blade is great to work with, they have a commercial truck sales department that's very good at what they do, and they located a discount. Yeah, as you've seen from the builders group, there are many other discounts that are available once we purchase that yearly membership. And I haven't looked into what other areas we might be able to utilize that in, but it's a $1,500 discount. You know, $2,000 discount with $500 cost. So kind of a no-brainer there. And I didn't know that, so I appreciate him finding that. But yeah, I can look into that.
Madam President Andrew?
I guess, Carol, was this also unanimously approved by the Finance Committee?
Yes, it was.
Thanks.
I have one thing just to add to Jacob's, and to go back to Sarah's question about the mileage. Normally, construction equipment or equipment that we would use as a construction equipment, miles don't count. It's hours on the engine that counts. And normally on any construction equipment, there'll be an hourly gauge to let you know that this truck has probably not been shut off since 4 o'clock in the morning until 7 o'clock at night. And it's only run about 40 miles, but it's run for 12 hours.
Eric?
That, a great point that Mike made. Do any of our maintenance equipment have Hobbs meters in them? Okay. And do we track that?
Yes, so the majority of the trucks do, and we track hours. It's very common for like security vehicles to be idling for huge periods of time just due to the activities they're going about. We have them in, I'd say, 10 or 11 of the 15 vehicles we have, and then they're in all of the equipment that we own. We use hour meters to track our maintenance, and it's a better means of tracking maintenance to use the hours versus miles because they tend to stay in a small area. But yes, we do track the hours and the mileage. I didn't think to put that in this request.
No, thanks. My last question, or my last point is, it's pretty amazing that the reserve study had a predictive failure of the dump truck. And so that's a good job, reserve study. And call the question.
I see no further questions. Therefore, all those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All those opposed? 1 opposed, 7 in favor. The motion passes. Now the fitness center.
Yes, the next item is the fitness center equipment, and Maddie Otley will present the information regarding this one. And this one was also approved unanimously for the Finance Committee to send to the, no, we made an amendment to it, which has been added in. So, am I wrong? Okay, you might be right. I'm going to withdraw that because I'm being reminded that there was something else going on there. I'm not sure what, my notes may be inaccurate. Okay, go ahead, Maddie.
All right, so we are proposing replacing the fitness center cardio equipment. It's over 10 years old. Most of it has been failing since we took back ownership of the equipment and fitness center. We invited Zach Palmer here. He's back there in the back row. He's the Vice President of Fitness Gear and Training. We currently have a maintenance contract with them for our equipment, and they provided the lowest quote in our proposal, and we're also recommending that for approval. And so we asked him to come here and talk about the equipment if you guys had any questions about that. We have 14 pieces of cardio equipment, 4 treadmills, 4 ellipticals, 2 rowers, 2 recumbent bikes, 1 upright bike, and 1 stair stepper. Unfortunately, because of the age of the equipment, and we can't get replacement parts for a lot of them now, we had to permanently close 2 of the treadmills, which is pretty disappointing. Let's see here. We're also getting about 600 to 650 visits a week. Cardio equipment is one of the most popular pieces to use in the gym, so it's not only old, it's getting used quite heavily now again. So we're having to repair them over and over pretty much each time that fitness gear and training comes out. We have to work on them. So we are proposing going with Sports Art, which is the brand that we currently have. With the exception of the rowers. That's why there are so many different quotes in there, because Fitness Gear and Training was the only company who could provide a quote for all of the equipment that we need. We got other quotes from Sports Art directly, which is the manufacturer, and then another company. So We're also proposing purchasing this through a 3-year capital lease. Fitness Sphere and Training reached out to one of their financial partners and gave us some preliminary numbers there. So we're estimating about $2,124 a month. There's also a question at the Finance Committee about buyout at the end. So they did confirm it's just a $1 buyout at the end of that 3-year lease. We would own all of the equipment. And they also, there's a question about if we were to pay off the loan early, if there's an excess of SURF money at the end of the year. And Baycamp is the company that they are partnering with, and they said that in the event of an early payout, or payoff, the payments are calculated and a 4% discount applied, which is a great thing. So, yeah. Just want to remind you, Zach's here if you have any questions about the equipment in general.
Okay, so the motion is that the Board of Directors approve a SURF allocation not to exceed $78,215, including tax and contingency, for the purchase of fitness center cardio equipment within the community center with a 36-month capital lease, including disposal cost of broken equipment. Association management, this was something that the Finance Committee added, was that the association management will evaluate the amount of the loan pending the availability of funds in SURF at the end of this year to pay off the loan, thereby saving a lot of interest.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Paula.
Carol.
Paula.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I had skipped forward, this one was unanimous, so I
Yes.
just wanted to back that up.
Thank
that
you.
statement. That was correct.
I can make mistakes. And
Well, me too, so.
there was a lot of discussion on this one, so if I could just mention, first of all, this equipment is extremely old and was not really maintained during the time that the YMCA had responsibility for it. And I think Maddie spoke to 2 treadmills being down. It's actually 2 ellipticals.
Oh, sorry,
that
yeah,
are closed.
2 ellipticals
Yeah,
that are
they're completely dead. And I have to tell you, I get asked questions about it all the time. What are you doing about it? So, and I know there are a lot of people who are using it. The other piece was that we're going to look at, and I don't know if this has already been done, Jennifer, maybe you can confirm, the Finance Committee asked that staff look and see if the financing that we are getting through Zach's referred company is the best financing. We were also going to talk to WeQ and a few other things, because one of the things is over a 3-year period, the amount of interest on a leased product is pretty high. If we could pay it off at the end of the year with enough capital, it would probably save us somewhere in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $12,000.
So I've contacted both the WECU and CAP, Community Association Bank, and I've been playing phone tag with both of them. I was actually out of the office on both Friday and Monday, so I don't have a definitive answer for you for this evening, but I am in contact with both banks to be able to see if they have a better financing option than what's presented here, and if they do, then we would go with that best value lease option over the 36-month term.
Also, we asked Zach if he could give us an idea of what the lifespan is of this equipment, assuming that you will be taking really good care of it for us. So do you want to speak to that?
Sure.
Go.
Yeah, please.
Microphone, please.
Obviously, after 3 years, if not sooner, we would own it. So we want to know how long will it last and how soon would we need to consider replacing it.
So from a warranty standpoint, the product carries the strongest manufacturer warranty in the industry. So it's lifetime frame, 5 years on all parts, and 3 years labor. So the way I tend to quantify that is, I call it the lemon clause. For the first 3 years, they basically cover anything and everything as an out-of-the-box failure. Thereafter, you have whatever's left on parts. There are a lot of different variables that can impact the life and longevity of the equipment. So I really try to defer when trying to anticipate the expected longevity of the equipment. I like to say that it's a minimum of 5 years. The equipment has lasted 11 years thus far, even with several years of poor and improper maintenance. So I think that speaks very highly to the manufacturer. I would say under general pretext, and again, there are many different variables that can impact this, 7 to 10 years would be a relatively viable range.
Thanks. Good.
Questions?
Call the question.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Is this coming out of it, was this in the SURF budget for 2019, or is this coming out of the reserves we talked about, or the
So-
contingency we talked about earlier?
This is in the SURF budget, yeah, ranked at level A in that prioritization SURF.
What was the amount it was budgeted for in SURF?
I can't remember the exact amount, but this is within it. I think what we did was move, spread it over 3 years, though.
So approximately $78,000 over the 3 years, with $25,988 a year.
So it was set up to be done, so when we budgeted, is that where we came up with the 3-year funding thing, was because we budgeted to do it in 3 phases in the SURF
Correct.
budget?
For cash flow.
Anything, comments?
I just would like to know what our current maintenance program is with you right now, and if we get the new equipment, how often it will be maintained.
I believe we're on a quarterly maintenance right now, and then we're also able to call them out whenever we need, and then they bill us hourly. But the quarterly has seemed to go well so far.
If I can interject on that too, a lot of that becomes usage dependent. So as usage increases, a higher frequency may become necessary. We also offer rate reductions relative to increases in frequency, and the means and manner in which we time it, we try to manage it in a way that it minimizes the expense to you guys to in turn maximize the value. But the thing to be mindful of or considerate of is just as usage increases, additional preventative maintenance may need to be increased, but we will also help to coach the staff on what can be done in terms of interim maintenance and other preventative steps to make sure that the equipment lasts as long and as well as possible.
One thing I'd like to bring to everyone's attention is on page 34, if you see the total number of visits, when he talks about usage, we're getting in a neighborhood of 2,500 visits a month. That speaks well for our recreation department, but it also goes right back to what Zach was talking about. If you get 700 like we were when we were being taken care of by the Y, the stuff would probably last 20 years.
Anything else?
Call the question.
Okay. Seeing nobody who wants to speak, all those in favor? Okay, the motion passes unanimously. Carpet installation?
Trying to get to my page.
Page 60.
Okay, this also is for Maddie to present, so if you would, Maddie.
Sure. So this is a proposal to install carpet tiles in the Sunshine Room. It's on the first floor of this building. It's a large children's playroom. Lots of different toys down there. We have community members who use the room every single day. It's frequently booked for birthday parties, and it's used by Christ the King Church every Sunday. So it's a very popular room in this building. When I arrived, I was surprised to see that the top floor in the room was removed. So there was a subfloor in there, the cracked concrete subfloor. And like I said, it's a very popular room, so the cracks are only getting more degraded. So they're only getting larger, and then it's creating all this dust and debris within the cracks, which is, getting all over the room. So we're asking for funds to place carpet tiles in the room as part of the SURF prioritization list for this year. Money for Barn 8 emergency repairs was allocated. I think it was about $50,000. So we're asking for it to be taken from that allocation. But we obtained 3 quotes. The quote from Carpet Liquidators was from For a low-grade carpet, we wanted to provide the most standard carpet tiles that you could get. And the other two are for a mid-grade carpet. So the mid-grade carpets last a few years longer, about 8 to 10 years. The low-grade lasts 6 to 8 years. We're recommending the Great Floors quote. The quote includes transportation, materials, and installation costs. And there's a few questions at the Finance Committee about the quote itself and what some of the verbiage meant. And I reached out to Great Floors and they said, there's this thing called embossing leveler that's in the quote. And it's a coating that makes the surface smooth and clean for the carpet tiles to adhere to. So they put it over the floor and it helps adhere the tiles to the floor better. And it says floor level in there, and that's literally them coming out to level some of the areas because the room actually is quite uneven in there. So that will help them create this smoother surface for them to glue the carpet tiles down to. So yeah, we were proposing going that way. It was also brought up in the Finance Committee, the option of grinding down the concrete floor and painting it. I reached out to Bruce, our maintenance manager, and he told me that he thought that they didn't have the staff to do that at any time of the year. It's quite a large room, and it would take, they'd have to rent a whole bunch of equipment, and it would be a few bodies for a significant period of time. He thought that it wasn't feasible for his staff to do that. So that's why we were going ahead with this idea of putting down carpet tiles. It seemed to be the simplest solution. So that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
So I'll make a motion that the board approve a CRRF allocation not to exceed $5,035, including tax installation, and a 5% contingency for purchase of carpet tiles for the Sunshine Room.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion?
Paula, since you had notes about this, you did take notes on this, right?
I did.
Yes. Would you like to discuss a little bit about some of our conversation at the Finance Committee?
Okay, it's background from the Finance Committee meeting?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Those notes are not in front of me, but I'll go from memory.
Yeah, I'll help from what I can.
There was actually a really robust conversation about the carpet and what other options there were, and like Maddie had said, should we be buffing it down? Should we be working on the surface itself? The value of the carpet, putting money into the barn, period, whether or not we should be doing that. And if we do that, what grade carpet should we be looking at, and which one of these have the most value? I think a lot of the conversation centered around the safety of a lot of kids in there. There's, correct me if I'm wrong, but about 80 kids in there on the weekend. Is that?
Christ the King Church is, the people going has significantly increased. So they told me a few weeks ago they had about 70 to 80 children alone that they're trying to manage in this building.
In there.
And most of them are going into the Sunshine Room.
And that's every Sunday.
That's every Sunday.
When they have church. So there's kids in and out of there. And so there's a lot of talk from parents that are on the Finance Committee as well, that they use it all the time. There are parents going down there meeting in the rec center, and one parent will watch the kids over in the Sunshine Room while their parents go and work out, so that they're helping each other utilize the facilities better. So there was a lot of really good conversation on it, and I think much of it centered on, it was not a unanimous vote. I think we had 1 no, 2 abstained, and I think that was kind of the crux of the conversation.
Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Do we put it in, and what type of, and how much do we spend if we choose to put it in?
Some other things that I remember from our conversation was, Maddie, you indicated that the manufacturer, the installer, stated that these carpet tiles could be removed and reused elsewhere. So if at some point in the future we decide to replace the building, there is a possibility of salvaging those carpet tiles. I did have another conversation with the general manager today about it, because this is one of the things that has probably been the most concerning to me. Even though it's a small amount, it just seems maybe not like the best solution, but I don't know of another solution. I am concerned about safety. I did ask him what is typical in a daycare center. What do you use? And he says it's typically tiles like this, so that if one gets damaged or stained, it can be removed. So now I have the question, and you may not be prepared to answer this, is there any additional amounts that are included in this $5,000 purchase that would allow us to do such a thing as do replacements for a percentage of them? Or would we need to add to our order in order to be able to do that?
I think we would need to add to our order. It was just purely for covering the surface. There was going to be no surplus, of tiles. This is something that they have in stock, which actually does reduce the cost to us. If we had to special order it, then obviously the cost would increase. But this is a national chain, which helps. They're able to get lower prices, and they'd be able to reorder the tiles if we needed them. It's a common style, so.
Okay, great, thanks.
Madam President, Sarah.
I guess, it sounds like there was a lot of discussion at Finance Committee, so this probably is something that came up there, but I guess I'm just imagining, I just feel like carpet's a really bad idea. I mean, kids spill stuff all the time, and especially if there's that many kids in there, it's gonna be a mess. I mean, you're not gonna be stain resisting that. It's just not gonna happen. So I guess it just seems like it would make more sense to put in like a laminate or something that's still not super expensive, but not going to get just trash. I mean, at least look like, even if the carpet holds up okay, if it's stained everywhere in a year. I mean, if there's really that many kids, 80 kids on a Sunday, it is not gonna last. It's gonna look horrible in no time. And it just seems like kind of a wasted investment. I would think we should do laminate.
I would say laminate, with the floor being so uneven, is probably not viable down there. Even with leveling it out is probably why you have to use the carpet.
Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. That room is always a mess. Every day we have to go back in there and pick up Cheerios and put all the toys away. But the floor is actually significantly uneven. And we asked about regular carpeting, and they said it's so uneven it would have bubbles in it. And that would be for any type of other flooring too. It would be very difficult, if not impossible, to make it look quality-like, especially since we're using this building in a commercial way with high usage. They did note that the carpet we got a quote for is antimicrobial, which is great in a children's room so you don't have that excess bacteria buildup, and it is stain resistant, but and we're going to go for a darker carpet. We did keep that in mind, no white.
Is that darker carpet available in the first quote from Carpet Liquidators as well?
That's correct, yeah. I went to Carpet Liquidators in person and picked out the carpet tile, and we're going for a dark tile.
Okay, and the reason I ask is I did vote to put this forward at the Finance Committee largely so that I could go take a closer look at it looks like what is really pushing the price up on the second quote is it's not a one-to-one comparison between the carpets. The one is the antimicrobial, and I understand it's stain resistant as well, but I had a hard time with the price increase for antimicrobial. There's, I talked to a contractor friend of mine, there's some concerns even about safety in the chemicals and antimicrobial, and if that cost, considering that room, kind of was worth it. So I kind of wonder if it's not a better option to go with that first one with the sole really benefit of the second one, and that extra $2,000, nearly $2,000, that's a big difference just for the antimicrobial. So I just want to put out that there might be a better option than the second one for the carpet in the room.
Carol?
I'm getting a sense that we're just not convinced. There's too many questions, and I'm going to recommend that we table this and see if we can't get, I feel like we need a convincing argument that this is the right decision. That's just my feeling about it. We can go ahead if nobody else agrees, but I just feel like we're not all on the same page on this, and we all have a lot of questions.
Table until when?
Until the next business meeting? I guess that would be a month.
Until the regular meeting in 1st of May.
Do you want to do it to the, I can do it the 2nd of May, is fine. Yeah.
The second meeting of May or the
Well,
2nd of May?
because we're doing a special meeting a week from now, make it the regular meeting, which would be 2 weeks from.
Okay, the
now.
first regular business meeting in May,
Right.
which would be the 9th,
May 9th.
8th, what?
9th.
9th.
11th.
That's my recommendation. Okay.
Can I ask for specific questions or things that I can follow up with you guys on, just so I can know what to prepare for the next meeting?
Yeah, the 9th, okay. All right.
Okay, so we have the motion to table. Any,
Okay, one of the things that I'd like to see is, patch the rough areas, the concrete, and put some sort of, there's a heavy-duty paint that you can put down too. Another option.
Madam President Whitney?
I would like to see the cost comparison between those carpet tiles and just like a heavy-duty industrial business carpet, you know, like they use in the lobby of a building that gets up really a lot of traffic. Because I know you can buy that for pretty inexpensive and it wears forever. So maybe just even a big roll of that rather than the actual tiles would be a lot cheaper. And even if you had to replace it every 3 or 4 years, it might be less cost or cost less in the long run.
Okay, so we're going to table this until the,
I have one more question. Does the board feel like we should go ahead with trying to get more information about a lower grade carpet tile or that industrial or a mid-grade, just so I can reach back out to the companies and ask them for more information?
Carol?
Where I'm coming from is, I guess I feel like we need somebody to maybe talk to us from an expert position, is what should be in there, why should it be in there? You've done a great job of doing the research, Maddie, but somehow I think we've got so many questions that we just need somebody who can say to us, look, this is what, and if it's $10,000, we just need to know that it's the right thing. I'm not suggesting that, don't misunderstand me. I just don't feel like, we've got a lot of suggestions, and maybe somebody needs to be able to say to us, that's not going to work, that's not going to work, and here's the reason why. And that this really is the best solution.
I can reach out to the companies and see if we can get a representative to come out and talk about our different options.
Okay, table.
Larry?
One other question to have you look into. If we were going to go with carpet tile of any kind, and you noted that the price that you have here includes only the bare flooring, could you add in what a recommended amount would be for a recommended number of spare tiles?
Yes,
So that we can have that cost added in?
I will do that.
Thanks.
That completes the capital requests. And we now have the February and then the March financial statements, and that will be Jennifer. Thank you, Maddie.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maddie.
Okay, so the February financials are on pages 68 to 73, and I thought we'd skip right over them since it's almost the end of April and go over March. But I wanted to include them in the board packet, that way everyone's gotten a copy of what's posted on our website. We always post the financial statements on the finance committee page. At the very bottom of the page, just keep scrolling down below everyone's pictures, you'll see all the historical financial statements. Let's see, so March's financial statements start on page 74. And so we have our balance sheet in March, and you'll see that we have positive net operating assets of $757,743. You'll notice that we now carry an accrued vacation liability, and this is at the suggestion of our new auditors. to record that liability, and it gets adjusted monthly. Our new payroll system allows us to do that very easily, so that it calculates that report value. The accrued payroll is only a year-end adjustment, and that is to record the last few days of December's payroll into December and not record them in January. But since we're on a bi-weekly pay schedule, we just record our payrolls 2 a month and 3 a month, twice a year, 26 total. And then the end of the year accrual. So you'll see that adjustment again at the end of the year. Our fixed assets, those are all of our assets that we've purchased, and then we have our lots held for sale, and that has not been adjusted yet this year, but we have sold one ULID for $1,150, and then we also, in March, received the income from the sale of 69 Louise View Drive for $7,392. You'll see that cash flow, I guess, would be on page 77, I believe, the reserve cash balance and activity schedule. And so you'll see that cash flow that's come in under the board density reduction under sale of assets. You'll see the cash there for the $8,542.
I think that's 76.
Oh, 76. I'm reading out of my finance
It's really
packet.
hard to read,
Yeah.
but I think that's about what it is.
Actually, if you're referring to pages in this report, could you refer to page 2 of whatever that next number is that we can't read? So,
Oh, page 3.
thank you.
Okay. If we go back to page 2, this is our income statement summary through March. You'll notice that the marina income shows that we are significantly under budget, and that's because we just haven't collected all the money yet. So people are actively renting the marina spaces. We have some extra wet slips that have become available, but we anticipate that we'll receive all that revenue by the end of the year. It's just a timing of when people pay versus when the revenue is recorded. We are over and contracted in professional services, and that's mainly due to the snow event. So after we record the motion from tonight's meeting regarding UDR snow funding, that will go way down. And then we are also over in our maintenance and landscaping. Part of that is vehicle repair and maintenance, and then in the health club, we've had a lot of painting in this building, you may have noticed downstairs, so that those supplies have put us over budget so far for the year. Hazard tree removal is also over budget so far, but with these overages and underruns in revenue, we anticipate that we're gonna be back on budget by the end of the year. So even though currently it shows $122,000 worse, the timing of our expenses was different than we thought it would be, and then we have all the snow expenses included in that $122,000. So on page 3, okay, is our reserve cash balance and activity schedule. I'll add on here for next month, but under SURF, we should include that we anticipate to get our Lake Whatcom Water and Sewer District assignment of savings back. Well, almost all but $9,000 of it, and that will happen after the fire hydrant is installed at Area Z. So I anticipate that at the latest it would be the end of the dirt work season we'd get those funds back. And then $9,000 of it is held for mitigation and then released at a later date. Roads is looking healthy this year. We are able to fund everything that, all of our design projects that we have scheduled so far in our microsurfacing, our capital reserve fund, so that's the 1/4 of 1% from home sale prices. That's at $339,000. Board density reduction, there's not a lot of activity that goes through there, so the sale of our lots, and then we'll have the property taxes on our common lots that'll come through. We still have Area Y. It's a common lot. And then the property taxes for the business buildings such as this and the clubhouse, those are paid out of operations. Our mailbox fund, not a lot of activity in there. We have our assignment of savings accounts, and then in UDR, as Carol said earlier, we'll still have over $200,000 and UDR after the 94,600 that was approved tonight. And that's all I have on the financial statements.
Okay,
Any
moving on
questions?
to the CBC map. Who wants to talk about that one?
I have a question on the thing.
Oh, sorry, no problem.
Okay, you're gonna remember this way better than I am, Jennifer, but I thought, so I'm looking at the bottom of page 1 in your note about the 30-day, our internal policy, we write off after 30 days. And I thought like 2 years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago in our audit report, the auditor specifically recommended we don't do that. Do you remember the details of that?
Yes, I do. So as you can see, if you go back to page 1 on the balance sheet, you'll notice that the member receivables is $24 for February 28th, but at year end, it's $48,727 in operations, and if you move down to capital, it's $2,193. Now, auditors have said that for GAAP purposes, we need to say how much of our receivables we're reasonably going to collect and not collect. And it's safe to assume, based on our current collection practices, that we're going to collect roughly everything up to 90 days. And so at the end of the year, we adjust for GAAP purposes only to that 90-day accrual. But intermittently during the year, and our auditors have agreed with this, we write off 100% of our receivables. And that's because we want to see how much cash we've received. So if someone owes me $500 and they only pay me $100, well then I still have $400 that I haven't received. And so to show that we've only gotten that $100, I write off the $400. It doesn't mean that it's not collected. It just means it goes into a contra account. It just sits somewhere else on the balance sheet. And so that allows us and the board to make better financial decisions about what our cash flow is, because we are so cash strapped, especially in our capital funds, and we need to know exactly how much cash we're going to bring in at the end of the day and how much cash we have, which is why I prepare the report on page 3, that reserve cash balance and activity schedule, so that we can project just how much cash we're going to have at the end of the year and what projects we can do and not do. And so that's the purpose of having that separate adjustment at year end, is just for GAAP, and then during the year it's more of a modified cash basis financial package.
Okay, and then one follow-up question to that, and I apologize because you've answered this for me before, I just don't remember. When you do that and then we collect the money, does it go back allocated to Operation Surf Roads, or does it go to UDR? I thought I remembered something about it going to UDR. Can you remind me how that works?
So it depends on what the charge is. So all of our charges in C3 are tracked separately. So X dollars for surf, X dollars for roads, and X dollars for operations as the membership has voted. And then when those funds are collected, then the money goes into each of those accounts. So if you pay me $1, it would get split out with that allocation, surf, roads, and operations. All prior year operating money collected in the current year goes to UDR. And then all current year operating money collected in the current year goes to operations. So anything that someone owed from December 2018 in operations, if it was collected today, that would go into UDR.
So does that same 90-day rule apply for those, or if it was due in December and they paid it in January, does that all go on UDR?
Yeah, so if it was due in December for operations and it was paid in January for operations, then it would go into UDR. I have a cash basis report that shows me when the money is collected.
So any other time, so if I owed in January and we collected it in March, it would get allocated between the 3 categories?
It always gets allocated. It just depends on what charges you have outstanding on your account. So if you hadn't paid all of your December dues, if you hadn't paid operations, surf, and roads in December and you paid them in January, Then in January, the money would go to UDR, to SURF, and to roads.
Oh, so the surf roads allocation stays the same, it's just operations versus UDR?
Right.
Okay.
And then my understanding is that the purpose of that policy when it was put into place is that way the general manager manages the funds that are collected in the current year, and that funds collected outside of the current year, which really wouldn't be for the current year's budget, go to a board designated fund.
I have a quick question, or actually clarification, jumping off of what Sarah was talking about with the allocation to the three different funds, operation and the two capital. We change we reallocate from time to time. The membership votes to reallocate the distribution from time to time, meaning that what is the split now for SURF versus roads? I can't remember what the percentages are, but what, 3 years ago, it reallocated to a different percentage. And so if we're receiving dues that were owed 4 years ago, is it allocated into the SURF and roads funds at the percentage of the years that it was owed, or
Yes,
the current?
that's correct, of the years that it was owed.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Okay, any further questions on the finances? Okay, the map, the CVC map.
The CBC map?
Yes.
You want to talk to that, Joe?
Yeah, what we have here is the map that we will be using for the 2019 vegetation control. That is in red. Everything on this map is what we'll be doing this year. As you can see, you've done it the last 4 years, and they're all color-coded for those years. So we're getting through the community. There's a few more roads to do, probably the next couple of years to get these through. But everything we are doing this year is in red.
What about the blue?
The blue, yeah, there's some blue sections in there as well that we will be doing with with our bucket truck. So,
So red and blue are this year?
red and blue this year is what we'll be doing for our stuff, for the vegetation control.
Cool, thank you. A lot of work done.
Yeah.
I do have a question on that. The question I have is, noted there is a difference between the yellow and black vegetation sections and versus vegetation and culvert. Do you happen to know whether culverts are going to be included in any of this year's blue and red sections?
I am not aware of any culverts that will be cleaned out. We do have some culvert work that we are going to be doing that went through SURF, but I am not aware of any culvert work that they'll be cleaning out.
Okay.
Anything else?
Well, there's not on the map. Sorry, not on the map. If there are no other questions on the map, we will move on to the recreation fee schedule amendment. All right, and Maddie, are you presenting that again? Great, thanks.
So the Recreation Department is proposing, just tweaking some of the current fees that we have. As you know, the department was made June 1st last year, and we didn't have any rec fees set up yet, so we've had like 3 weeks to create them. So they're just not quite perfect. And we went through almost a whole year now of trying to assess these fees, and we're just wanting to make a few tweaks. And all the proposals are really would only affect non-members, since it's people are paying for this with their dues now for the special assessment. So this would just be kind of tweaking some of the pool fees and the gym fees, just to clarify how things are assessed. And instead of going through each one, I was hoping everyone could just look at that attachment A, which is what it would actually look like in the fee schedule if we were to approve all of the proposed restructuring and amendments. I'd be happy to ask any of the questions that you have about any of the proposed changes. And it's page 85 in your packet.
Do you want to speak just a little bit to the structure that you've created and the fact you've done some research to find out what's typical in the industry and the research that you did regarding the instructors' fees and how you are handling that this year, which I think is brilliant.
That's right. We are proposing to eliminate, as you see, the only thing in red, it says club fees. So last year, the board approved fees for instructors. And before that, the term instructor and club was being used synonymously. So that club fee was actually for instructors like Lish, who teaches aerobics in this building. So we wanted to kind of eliminate that, that confusing jargon there, because you already have fees for the instructors, and that's what the club fees were meant to be for. So we're proposing eliminating that since we already have the fees for the instructors. But speaking of instructors, we're asking to change how we're assessing the fees to them. So before, we were assessing it based on number of sessions that they have in this building. And we're actually getting quite a few calls from other people who are wanting to have classes out in other facilities, and we don't have fees for that yet. So we have one lady who wants to do dog training in the parks, and the yoga instructor over in the market wants to teach poolside yoga, which is great, but we don't even have any fees to assess them because it's all about community center instructor fees. And then we were basing it based on if you had like 12 classes or 8 classes, which we thought made sense because people like Lish are very set. We have 3 classes each week, you know, for the month. But not everybody's like that, especially personal trainers, because they don't come every day with the same client. So I guess the industry standard is a 90-10 split. So the instructor keeps 90% of the gross income and we keep 10%. And Jennifer's helped me with coming up with a system to make sure that we're checking that that's actually being assessed correctly. And so that's what we're recommending going forward with.
So I make a motion that the board accept the new fee schedule as has been amended by the Recreation Department.
Second that.
Discussion?
Call the question.
Seeing no questions or comments, all those in favor? It is unanimous. Motion passes.
Thank you.
And finally, from Jennifer, we have WeQ borrowing resolution history.
Great, so I know we were here recently about credit cards, so I included all the history of prior discussions for your reference. But we'd like to increase the credit card limits on 2 of our managers, Jacob Close and Bruce Bishop. They both purchase a lot of equipment, and especially during this most recent storm event, the limits weren't high enough in order for them to be able to order the additional materials that they needed on an emergent basis for parts, for de-icer. And so we had to go and make mid-month payments on the credit cards. And unfortunately, our accounting software is limited. We had to make mid-month payments so they could make these purchases that they needed. But unfortunately, our accounting software is limited in that I can only have one AP that I can record accounts payable against. I can't set up a liability for the credit card and charge it against there, and it creates a lot of accounting trouble to get those additional mid-month payments cleared out. And then also the manager has to call me and say, hey, Jennifer, I've reached my limit. I need to order this sander part. It needs to be here tomorrow. Could you pay off the credit card so I could order the part? And so there's just not enough of a limit on their accounts to account for that crossover from one month to the next. And so I'd like to propose that those 2 limits get increased to $10,000.
I move that the board approve the amendment to the association corporate credit card policy and borrowing limits.
Second.
Question? Eric?
One comment about this. From in fact, I think it was Carol, you and I were dealing with this one day, and it was so hard to actually match up where the money was being spent using multiple reports, which is what you had to do unless the limit was increased, where it would be easily traced. And so I really appreciate this being the easy fix for what was becoming a very complex exercise.
Carol?
I also note that the amount of time that staff has had to deal with this issue because of the credit limits, it's always an emergency, it's always complex. You've got to figure out how much do you have to pay off in advance before you even get the bill so that you can charge more. It's not a very good practice for us because there's so much more opportunity for error in my mind and so much more time spent by staff to try to get this done. So, and I think that the policies that we have in place and the procedures we have in place for the credit card does not put us at risk because everything is tracked very, very effectively and is matched every single month for each individual expense that we have.
Call the
Question, comments?
Call the question.
Excuse me?
Mike called the question.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. All those opposed? One opposed, the motion does pass. Jennifer, in here is the resolution. Would you like the executive to sign this?
Yes, that'd be great, and then I can just send it over to the bank.
Okay.
Thank you.
Push it back this way. All right, with that being done, moving on to committee reports. And I think we can move through this reasonably quickly. Our ACC, you do have your minutes posted. Communication, you would like to approve a new member.
Yes, Madam President, Communication Committee would like to move to approve member Nate Euland.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, approved by acclamation?
By acclamation.
Okay. And moving on, document review.
Could I make one more comment from the Communication Committee? We actually got to have our first meeting of the year last week, and it was a productive meeting. And we would, the committee would like to have the board or staff look into putting signage at the mailbox clusters instead of at the gate entrances, or I'm sorry, at the gate exits for community,
Good idea.
For community
Communications.
communications, yes, not advertising.
Yeah.
But also possibly advertisement. For example, we have the bottom of the gate signs right now that is available for advertising. And so it's something that could be an additional revenue generator, but also a better way to communicate. I know when I'm driving out the gate and I stop at the stop sign and I know what I'm looking for on the sign. I want to know, is there really a board meeting happening? And I might miss it because it's a quick thing. So the Communication Committee moved that we bring this to the board level and see what goes from there. And so that's just a comment
Okay.
from the community.
I think one of your charges for this year was to look at that thing exactly and to make a proposal and bring it back to the board. And if you think that it would be productive to include a section for, ads, et cetera, bring it to the
Right,
board.
well, the next step in that process would be for permission for staff to actually research those things and get bids. It's not a committee function to go into that granular detail on how much it's going to be and take it to the finance committee.
Okay, bring the concept here and then we'll talk about the details. Yeah.
And this was the concept.
Yeah, okay. Works for me.
And we have input.
Why would we not keep them at both places? Egress out of the community and the mailboxes?
The committee believed that we were trying to contain cost of deploying new signage as much as possible, and so I'd love if the proposal included, comparison of including everything or, replacement, because there are, how many mailbox clusters? 13?
I think so, yeah.
13 mailbox clusters versus, 6 gates?
6 gates, right?
Yeah. So we're talking about the cost of, the printing is expensive of those signs.
You'll see that the 2020 budget assumptions include mailbox cluster signage, recycling, and lights as an assumption.
Oh, fantastic. Then if that's the assumption, maybe we could amp that up by looking into electronic signs.
Oh, God.
I'm kidding.
Nobody approved this yet. Hold on.
I think someone else is amped up.
Okay. DRC, anything?
Yes, we will be looking at our last couple of minutes to get them approved, so there's nothing on that regard. However, at the last meeting, we discussed what was discovered with regard to the problem in last year's ballot. It turns out to appear to be 3 very simple typographical errors. We request that Rich address that issue.
I have your email, I will
And that's basically it. With luck, he will say that those are scrivener's errors, they don't mean anything, and we can just go ahead and make those corrections.
Okay. Emergency preparedness?
As posted.
Okay, and your minutes are posted. Finance, we go through that thoroughly. Long-range planning does have minutes posted. N&E, have you had nothing yet? Okay. Wait till September. Parks, Trails, and Recreation?
We have had meetings. I'm surprised that they weren't posted online. I apologize for that. And I'll find out why. We've had subcommittee meetings too.
Yeah.
Regards parks, trails, and recreation, which we don't take minutes at. But I'll find out why we're not submitting these for posting online. And again, my apologies.
Okay. All right, moving on to the 4th of July.
Good evening. This is going back again after the last business meeting to what was tabled for the recommendation for fireworks at the 4th of July. The board requested some additional information. We would like to go ahead and propose that we do allow fireworks at the marina for the 4th of July event. This does not include anything to do with the picnic or anything that has to do with that. This is a risk management recommendation as much as anything. We understand that this is a holiday that has a lot of emotion tied up to it, fireworks, picnics, good fellowship. But we also understand that if we do not provide a location to discharge the approved Washington State Safe and Sane fireworks to our members, that we are looking to have this occur in our 6 gates, in the communities and cul-de-sacs. And as you know, this is an urban forest. It's an aging urban forest. We typically get into dry seasons around July, and this is, like I said, as much as anything, is a risk management tool to allow this to occur and to minimize or to lessen the risk in our neighborhoods. The board asked about projected costs for the marina for the 4th of July, part of it for the fireworks, and working with historical numbers we've spent with over the past years as well as last year. We're looking, and this is looking at around $5,700 for labor and setup of our departments with turf and maintenance, additional security personnel, and a new charge of about $540 to bring in Cascade Ambulance to have a basic life support unit with EMTs down at the marina to provide the minor medical care, with the understanding if there is an injury that requires an EMS call of 911, that South Whatcom Fire will still be available to do that. So our recommendation again is to, as the board, to approve discharge of the fireworks at the marina and for July 4th this year.
Do we have the original motion that we're picking up off the table?
I don't know that we ever had a motion.
Yes, the
Did we?
motion was originally that we have a 4th of July, if you remember. And then
That is
with
so
fireworks.
nebulous. Well, with fireworks,
Yes.
okay,
That was clarified.
okay. All right, no, I don't know what the reason.
Just take
And
it
so
up.
let me pick it up, and I'll make the motion that we have fireworks, the ability to have fireworks at the marina on the 4th of July event.
And that's
In
just a
addition-
reminder, the
and that's-
motion has already been made and seconded.
Yes, and it's been made and seconded. So now we can go into discussion, and I
Okay.
believe we also clarified that the motion included other events at the 4th of
Right, we
July.
were very specific, I
Yes.
remember about having, you know, potluck, whatever, yes, whatever
Right.
events happen.
But the critical part is,
Right.
we presumed that we would have all those other parts of the 4th of July event, I think, but we hadn't agreed to that. But that was
Correct.
the big,
We're waiting for information.
the wedge issue was the fireworks.
Okay. Larry?
Question, you said that the approximate cost, Norm, would be about $5,700. Then you mentioned a $500 charge for medical. Is that included in the 57, or is that in addition to the 57?
That's included in that number, Larry.
Thank you.
However, it should be clarified that if there are other things that the board wants there, like we had last year, like a rock wall and, no, it's separate.
Were those things for Bite of Sun Valley, or were they at the 4th of July?
I see. So, but there is a cost for SVCA labor, and that's not included in that $5,700 that was quoted. That it's just already budgeted for our own staff to be on site.
Okay. Paula, did you have a question?
No, not yet.
Okay. I do. How much is each additional security vehicle?
Currently, we're looking at adding one additional officer at their overtime and holiday rate, and so that calculation looks to be at about $122 for that additional officer.
$120?
122, yes.
Okay.
And if we add additional officers, it would be
Yeah.
at their overtime rate.
Going to the other stuff that we were talking about that we had last year, the hot dogs, hamburgers, et cetera, that's not in the 5750, I take it. That is? Okay.
And the climbing wall?
Climbing wall is, yeah, in that as well, if we so choose to do it. Yes, I would be in there if we so choose to do it again.
And the bouncy house?
No, that was at the,
That was at the bite.
Oh, that was
There
the
was no-
bite.
I
I
don't- I don't have
apologize.
bouncy house on this list.
I apologize, you're right. I got the two mixed up.
Although it's fun.
Now, it sounds like much, if not all of this would be coming out of the event budget. Is that anticipated?
Yes.
Okay, and is that how it was paid for last year? Okay,
Yes.
so it was, the entire thing was anticipated in budgeting, in creating that event budget line item?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Madam President, you have Paula?
If I remember correctly, when we were talking budget last year for the events, one of the reasons we specifically increased budget for events due to again, correct me if I'm wrong, but we specifically increased it because of the popularity and the increase. I think we had record turnout last year to the 4th of July event, and then that kind of rolled over into the bite of Sudden Valley. But if I remember correctly, that was one of the reasons that we raised that budget, was because we expected an increase this year, correct?
Call the question?
No, I have another thing to think about is if instead of spending money on fireworks and safety and all of these, that we were instead to bring on, instead of just 1, 3 or 4 security through the neighborhoods. Is this an option that we should be looking at?
Madam President, Larry has his hand up.
Yeah. Having been in this rodeo before, my suggestion is that they will be swiftly swamped by calls to deal with people firing off fireworks in the neighborhood. And as a result, only 2 or 3 extra people out there, we're risking having a fire.
I also would like to add that part of our mission to build community is that this is a great community building thing, and people really showed up the last couple of years to participate. So I think it's just a way for us to bring the neighbors together.
To add, you could bring in 5, 10 more people. It'll come down to security chasing bangs after they go off, and unless one of the neighbors wants to rat out the other neighbor, you would be chasing them all night.
Right, and I'm not looking at it from the point of view of catching people and ticketing people. I'm looking at making sure there are no fires. Just eyes on, okay, somebody says, there's fireworks going off 2 streets over from me. Good, send somebody there to look and make sure they haven't set a fire.
Norm, correct me if I'm wrong, but
Mike.
even
Mike the mic.
Mike.
Norm, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we still have a roving security even though we had extra security at the marina?
Yes, we will still have the roving patrol. They'll be responding to calls that we're going to get, and they'll also be available to assist with the parking aspect, especially on departures. That tends to be the area where we need to have a lot of hands-on, even with maintenance personnel directing, to make sure we're getting people outflow through the marina in a safe manner, and they're not trying to turn that into, I'm tired and I want to get home ahead of you. So, and not to mention, we've had some of our population of deer hit in the past, so we try to minimize all of that by having the roving patrol. But they will be available here, and they'll be busy through the evening, no doubt.
One more question. There was from the audience, from the community, there was a suggestion of having a nominal fee for every automobile that is parked at the marina. I believe the fee was $5, but it wasn't stipulated that it would be for those people that are not living here versus those people that do live here. Just to kind of get rid of that, it was just $5 fee. Was any of that brought up in the discussion of coming up with our $57.50?
That was based on just what we expended or expect to spend, not a collection of a fee, no.
Thank you.
And I just had one comment that with regard to patrolling the neighborhood, I believe that we are gonna have extra staff to patrol. So there will, in fact, be, despite fireworks at the marina, there will also be additional patrols, higher than normal.
Typically, we're running with 1 officer per 8-hour shifts on roving patrol. We'll have 2 that'll be running during the evening and probably into the graveyard shift as well.
Do you think 2 is sufficient?
I think that based on the fact that that would be a sufficient number based on the kind of calls that you get. If we get into a situation where we're having possible reports of fires and whatnot, just the fire department will be rolling on those as well. Not to mention the sheriff's office will be out and the fire inspectors will be out. They'll be doing their random stuff also. So it's one of the most heavily patrolled events in our county anyway, but our 2 officers should be able to cover the volume of calls we're gonna get. We're just gonna end up having to keep one on longer than we normally do, because people don't like to stop at midnight. They don't like to stop at 1 a.m., so they'll be responding to those.
Thank you.
Now can I call the question?
May he call the question? Any further comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 in favor. All those opposed? 1 opposed. Okay, the motion passes. All right. As we have pulled the new business item, we are up to property owner comments. Nobody, okay. Yes, no, maybe? Okay, yes, okay, I knew you had to.
My name is Mary McIntosh, 3 Whistling Swan Place. I just wanted to ask that whatever standards are used to assess any complaints that are made from the residents regarding members of the board or members of committees, that the same standards are applied across the board for all members. And if certain standards, I was told as I entered this meeting tonight that I would not be allowed on the committee that I just was approved to join due to something that I posted incorrectly. And that's opening quite a can of worms, and I know that you guys are going into a private session to discuss complaints tonight. And I would like you to keep in mind that standards need to be maintained across the board for every resident here that has ever posted something that was incorrect. If we are now going to remove them from committees, then that's going to be pretty significant, and it maybe not be the best policy. So I'm just hoping that there will be some consideration given to that fact. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Joshua Bowen, 17 Staple Lane. How's everyone doing? You guys having a good night? I was curious about the signage that's on the gate entrances. Do those ever get cleaned up or wiped down, or is there any plan to replace that? I know when I moved here, a lot of people complained that there was all these rules about, you know, your lawns and all this kind of stuff, which obviously some people don't respect that. Others have really nice lawns. But like when you come into the gates, it feels like trashed up. So I think if, you know, we have a certain standard to abide by and we pay for that standard to overlook us as a community, it seems like some of those items should be addressed. Eric, you mentioned that sign. I don't think it's a good idea to have that there because I think that's a distraction for drivers. I just noticed it recently. You know, it's dark type on a brown background, and when it rains, it folds up. And I think having something like that at the mailbox is a good idea, and I think more people would see that. But as far as the gate entry signs, I mean, I've tried to calculate in my head how much it would cost to redo those, and the cost to redo something like that wouldn't even be significant, like $1,500 or something to do all of them. It just seems like that should be done to make, you know, first impression is everything. You drive in here and it doesn't look very good, or at least wipe them down, but you know, the graphic on there needs to be replaced. The other thing I wanted to say is that you guys were talking about the carpet in this place, and it seems like you're getting lost in the sauce on some of this stuff, and we're talking about rebuilding this barn for a crap ton of money, and I don't think that should even be an equation right now. I think what Whitney said about having a roll of carpet used for that is probably the best idea as far as cost goes, because how long is that gonna be in effect when this thing goes? I mean, it seems like some of that stuff can be crunched down a little bit, and, you know, we all pay money, our dues go up, or, you know, they're gonna go up more, but it seems like there should be some opportunities there to really crunch down on things that we don't need as a community, and that we can do a little bit differently. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, again, 15 Grandview, Waterman. Is the board having a closed session tonight?
Yes. We will have a closed session.
Did the board announce what the subject matter was of the closed session?
Legal issues.
So it's not, it didn't say it was about complaints?
It's a legal issue.
I was just wondering how someone would have come up with that. Thank you.
Anybody else? Board comments. Larry?
With regard to signs, I just want to let the community know that that's been an issue of mine, particularly for years, and our budget has always been incredibly tight. I spoke with the new GM about that, and you gave me a response. I think it's probably fair to mention that to the community as well.
I think it's something, those signs, we could look at going forward in the budget to replace those signs. At the facility I came from, I would love to see how you could do it for $1,500, and I would love to sit down and talk to you about it, because I know what our signs cost out there. A sign of that size was somewhere in about the $4,000 to $5,000 range.
I just mean repurpose.
Okay, thank you. This is a
Yeah.
board comment time.
Yeah.
Okay, any other board comments? Eric?
I like the comment from the community about signage, and if Larry hadn't suggested that, I was going to suggest that the communication committee put on the agenda to talk about that is a form of communication for Sudden Valley. Our gate signs is a part of our public facing presentation. And so I fully endorse the idea of signage being focused on. And
Okay.
now that I don't have to talk about it at the communication committee, so thanks, Larry.
Anybody else? Okay, let's move into closed session at 9:02.